animals, but they do not have true tissues. They can be pulled apart and reconstitute themselves as their cells identify each other and pull back together. That's cool by itself. But they do have different kinds of cells that work together. So they're not just a colony of cells that are all exactly the same. And they're not fungi or plants or bacteria, in part because they do not have a cell wall like fungi and plants, and they are eukaryotes, and they have to be multicellular. That's part of why, if they were not multicellular, and they were eukaryote, groups emerge. That is, like 3 go separately. Typically, that just means we don't know what's going on there. So that, typically we would end up at some point saying this one's closer to this one, but this just represents something we don't know. So right here, if we were looking at that, we would have, if we were looking at animals, for example, the sponges would be this one here. They would be the simplest. They would have the least in common with the rest, but they would still be in that group. And something like mammals might go off here, reptiles might go off here. That would be a big branch point. So very often when we draw something like this, we represent how different they are from each other with the length of these. Sometimes we represent where we first see them in terms of age. That wasn't what I was looking for, but you're right about that. So let me ask a little, what do these features have all in common that would define them as a group? And land split is that, but all of the rest of them are vertebrates. In this case, we could try to estimate time, for example. Or we could make this look entirely different. Now, I don't know if you remember that little photograph of one of Darwin's notebooks where he had something sort of like this. It didn't look at all like this. It looked like he's just trying to fit things in together. This one is, this one is what we often do today. But this type right here is what we're going to look at when we're actually trying to use them as a useful tool. Now remember we talked, here's where some part of that exoskeleton. This is the wing of a bat, and it's an outgrowth of the bones. Something like a fish fin and a penguin wing are very similar in use, but they are not structurally derived. Hinged jaws. An actual skull with hinged jaws. Lampreys just have like a giant sucker scrape. Do you know what a lamprey is? It's like an eel, and it comes up to a fish like a salmon, and it grabs with its big sucker, and it just removes. It's ecto parasite, and it's disgusting. No, I shouldn't say that. I should say it is a lovely creation of God. However, to humans, it's a little bit appalling. Anyway,
so it's gross. Just say it's gross.
Is true of all of these, but the lancet is a